In 2022, I was anticipating a handful of games that I thought would easily make it the best year video games has ever seen. Well, most of those games got delayed, and instead, I ended up finding most of my favorite titles of the year elsewhere. Many of the best games I've played weren't really talked about in the casual gaming conversation, and there's a good chance you missed some. So before 2023 kicks into high gear, I wanted to take some time to spotlight my favorite indie games of 2022. If I had a most viral indie game of the year award, Stray would probably win it. People absolutely lost their minds at the idea of playing as a digital cat. If you're unaware, Stray is a game about a cat that gets stuck in an underground robot city and goes on an adventure to make it back to the surface. Now, outside of the cat mannerisms, I didn't think that Stray did anything revolutionary, but it got all of the simple things right. Oftentimes, I find that games are so hell-bent on selling you the vision, they neglect the core experience. But not Stray. The mechanics and the controls were solid, the atmosphere and visual style were fantastic, and the story was short and sweet. For a couple of hours, I was just immersed in this cat's journey, and by the end, I was satisfied with the story I was told. That's really all you need sometimes. So if you're looking for a chill and charming game featuring the perfect feline, check out Stray on PC, PlayStation, or PS Plus Extra. Next up is Rogue Legacy 2. I never played Rogue Legacy 1, I haven't heard many people talk about the franchise in general, so imagine my surprise when I saw that Rogue Legacy 2 was actually charting as one of the most well-reviewed indie releases of the year on Steam. In it, you'll make your way through a castle, defeating bosses and platforming like your life depends on it. And if you happen to lose said life, that's okay, because your bloodline continues with one of your descendants who will have a whole new set of traits that will somehow impact your next run. Rogue Legacy 2 has so many well-designed classes, upgrades, and modifiers that it really gives you an incredible level of freedom to tackle the game the way you want. That flexibility is crucial too, because even the earlier stages come with a pretty challenging degree of difficulty. The only thing that this game is missing for me personally is slightly stronger visuals. I really wasn't in love with the cyanide and happiness looking art style, but that's really a minor criticism overall. So if you're a roguelite fan, I highly recommend you check out Rogue Legacy 2 on Switch, Xbox, PC, Mac, and Linux. Now, typically I wouldn't let a horror title sneak into my personal top 10, but Signalis earned my respect. Signalis is a survival horror title where you take down nasty monsters and solve puzzles in an effort to track down your best friend and crewmate. So for context, I'm usually a big baby when it comes to horror games, but surprisingly, Signalis wasn't too bad. Things were definitely tense the entire time through, but it mostly relies on psychological horror instead of jump scares, which I appreciated. Every level sends you deeper into the chilling mystery of the game, while also presenting you with some extremely creative and tough puzzles to solve. Overall, I thought it was a shockingly well done homage to the survival horror genre with a downright mind-melting story to accent it. Steal your nerves and dive in on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and Game Pass. Cult of the Lamb is one of those games that's a jack of all trades and a master of none. Sure, it's not going to be the most immersive sim or the most advanced roguelite, but for a lot of people, it will serve as a fantastic entry point into the genres. Cult of the Lamb is a highly addictive roguelite sim where you'll build your very own animal cult. Your daily agenda consists of harvesting crops, sacrificing followers, picking up poop, and slaying ancient gods. I found that the novelty of the cult mechanics successfully kept me engaged right up until the credits. There was just something about being able to weave these wacky scenarios as a benevolent or cold-hearted cult leader that was consistently fun. And even though the core gameplay mechanics weren't as extraordinary, I felt like they were good enough to not interrupt the overall experience and immersion. So if this sounds up your alley, check out one of the most memorable indie games of the year on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, or PC. Next up, we have the game that looks like it was released in the 90s, and that's Vampire Survivors. I know, some of you might be looking at this gameplay thinking this is a prank, but no, Vampire Survivors actually made the list. The goal of the game is simple: survive as long as possible. And despite the lack of visual fidelity, it still managed to deliver one of the most engaging and addicting gameplay loops of the year. In a game where you really only move around and choose abilities, things quickly start getting strategic after your first few runs. I said this in my best roguelikes video, but it's really refreshing to see such a lightweight game gain so much traction among the general gaming population. No microtransactions, no hefty price tag, just a ridiculous amount of pure video gamey fun. Now, regardless of what I say here, this is one of those games where playing is believing. I know, this trailer is not gonna sell you. So pick it up on mobile, PC, Mac, Xbox, or Game Pass. Before we get to my 5 favorite indie games of the year, make sure to subscribe and like this video while I feature a few games that I think deserve a quick honorable mention. Next up is a game that seems to be criminally underrated, and that's Citizen Sleeper. It's a hybrid between a visual novel and an RPG, following a character that has escaped corporate slavery and now must build a new life for themselves on a bustling space station. You'll battle randomness with strategy as you tackle difficult decisions at every turn while looking for any way to make it to the next cycle. Now, I'm not gonna lie, at first glance I thought this game looked fairly static and honestly a little boring, but quickly after starting, I realized what made this game special. It's a game that constantly puts extreme pressure on you to survive. It crafts situations where doing the right thing may be punished and doing the wrong thing may feel like the only option. It introduces characters that are as complex as they are intriguing, who will sometimes force you to weigh your morality versus your need to survive. I truly love this game, and it's hands down has some of the best writing of the year, and I think it's a huge shame that more people aren't talking about it. One warning though, this game really shines because of the writing, not the gameplay. So if you're not the biggest reader, then maybe skip over this one. For everyone else, pick it up on Switch, Xbox, PC, Mac, and Game Pass. You won't be disappointed. The Case of the Golden Idol is the puzzle game I didn't know I needed. It's a brilliant series of fill-in-the-blank challenges where you're given a snapshot of a moment in time after a murder, and you then must use the clues from the scene to determine the facts about what actually happened. The whole time, the puzzles tell a pretty engaging and quirky story that constantly builds upon itself. It's a game that had me doing my best Sherlock Holmes impression as I was trying to find meaning in any and every little item at the scene of the crimes. There are brilliant misdirections and shocking revelations that come to light in each chapter as you slowly uncover the truth about the Golden Idol and its owners. There's one fatal flaw to this game though, it's far too short. It's definitely worth the money, but I could have easily eaten up twice as many chapters as this game provides, so I hope we see some DLC soon. Grab your magnifying glass and pipe before you go check this game out on Mac and PC. Okay, so I jumped on the Neon White train super late, like months after people had stopped talking about it, so I was a little bit afraid I had missed out on the community aspect that made it so popular. You see, Neon White is a game that glorifies speedrunning. Each level is designed to be dissected and attacked in an effort to be completed as fast as possible, and the game uses global and friend-focused leaderboards to keep you motivated in achieving this goal. Despite my late arrival, the ghosts of my friends' playthroughs still haunted me just as the devs intended. Seeing their times always pushed me to go the extra mile to figure out how to shave off a few seconds from my performance. But looking deeper, the true achievement of Neon White is the polish. The game completely gets out of your way so you can focus on honing your skill. It refuses to take the blame for your mistakes, it leaves everything up to you as a player. Truly a remarkably developed title that does everything to serve its core game mechanics. Unfortunately, the dialogue is easily the worst of any game I've played all year, but that's not super important because you can skip over it, so grab your friends and see who truly is the best speedrunning gamer on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, or PC. Tinykin is the most Nintendo non-Nintendo game I've ever played. It was one of the few games of the year that evoked pure joy for me the entire way through. Tinykin is effectively a third-party Pikmin. You see, you collect the Tinykin who will group up and help you platform and solve challenges. And while the starting idea isn't that creative, the game quickly earns its stripes. Every piece of this game was incredibly thought out. The visual aspect was painstakingly designed with an incredible degree of charm and detail. The gameplay mechanics are shockingly smooth and frustration-free from the moment you gain control, and the clever dialogue and writing had a ridiculous amount of references and struck the perfect comedic tone. It's not an understatement to say this was one of the best family games I've ever played. It was a simple and enjoyable collectathon that served as the perfect antithesis to the brutal Elden Ring type titles that beat me down all year. In my opinion, this is a must play, so check it out on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox PC, or Game Pass. To round out the video, we'll end with my personal favorite indie game of 2022, and that was Tunic. When I played the demo for Tunic a while back, I realized that the game was way harder than the visual style led on, got frustrated by the gameplay, and quickly lost all hype I may have had. Thankfully, I decided to give it another chance upon release, and over a dozen hours later, I had rolled credits on one of the most creative games I have ever played. The game on the surface is this cute Zelda meets Dark Souls hybrid, but after a couple hours of playing, I realized that Tunic is a complex and heartfelt challenge, daring the player to dig deeper. Tunic displayed an incredible amount of beauty across the board, in its isometric art style, in its music, and in its game mechanics. This game has so many secrets that there are some that most players will likely never stumble across. It features one of the most brilliant final puzzles I have ever had the pleasure of solving, and the in-game instruction manual is one of the best game mechanics I've ever seen. You'll find these manual pages in the world that will teach you mechanics hidden in plain sight right up until the end of the game. Its only Achilles heel was the Souls-like combat that could have been tweaked and polished a bit longer. Sadly, this game looks like it will be left in 2022 by most, but for me, it will always be an incredible gaming memory. With that, we wrap an incredible year for indies. There were tons of games not featured here that I didn't get a chance to play or couldn't fit in, so please check out the other videos on the channel to learn about more great titles you may have missed in 2022. Now, we focus our attention to 2023 and the year of our savior, Hollow Knight Silksong.